Much of the social science data that gives us a good handle on fostering communication in marriage comes out of more than 20 years of research at the University of Denver's Center for Marital and Family Studies. This groundbreaking research conducted by Howard Markman and Scott Stanley is contained in the best-selling books Fighting for Your Marriage and A Lasting Promise. According to the authors, gender differences can and do affect communication and intimacy in marriage. Women tend to experience intimacy primarily in terms of conversation. In girls, the language areas of the brain develop earlier than in boys, and language is processed in the same region of the brain that processes emotion. Studies have shown that while the average man speaks about 12,500 words a day, the average woman speaks more than 25,000. So we women like to talk, and we like to express how we feel. And when we share what is on our minds and hearts with the man we love, and he responds in an empathetic manner, the conversation creates for us a feeling of intimacy.
In the male brain, however, the area that processes language is separate from the area that processes emotion. And so it is not as easy for most men to talk about their feelings. Men tend to experience intimacy primarily in terms of shared activities. They like doing things, and when they do something together with the woman that they love and she responds in an enthusiastic manner, the shared activity creates for him a feeling of intimacy.
Another gender difference regards our emotional needs as men and women. A woman has a deep emotional need to feel cherished by her husband. To cherish means to treasure, to hold dear, to esteem highly, to take good care of, to tend solicitously, to treat tenderly. It is the attitude of a man who knows that he has been entrusted with a precious gift in the person of his wife, and who would gladly give his life to protect her. Think for a moment of the 1,500 people who stayed behind as the Titanic was sinking. They were mostly men who insisted that their wives and children get aboard the available lifeboats.
While a woman has a deep emotional need to feel cherished by her husband, a man has a deep emotional need to feel respected by his wife. To respect means to show honor or esteem for, to hold in high regard, to treat with deference, to look up to appreciate and admire. It is the attitude of a woman who is open, even eager, to receive what the man who would give his life for her has to offer. We once heard a counselor make the point that she never had a couple in marriage counseling in which the husband felt respected by his wife. These are deep emotional needs on the part of both husband and wife, and they correspond to the words of both St. Peter and St. Paul that husbands should cherish their wives and that wives should respect their husbands.
Yeah, I think, it's so important to feel cherished by your spouse, especially as a woman, and I feel especially cherished when he goes out of his way to do something that he knows I'll appreciate. Just something small, like spending time with me before dinner or while I'm cooking, when I know he'd much rather be out getting a chore done or playing with the dog. I think that makes me feel cherished. Sometimes it goes back to, I think, like feeling respected and cherished really go hand in hand, because I think at times where maybe I've been disrespectful, it stems from me not feeling cherished, or vice versa.
Yeah.
I think, those really need to go hand in hand. When I feel like my opinion's cherished in decisions he's making, then he also feels respected.
True.
When I can allow him that freedom.
Yeah, like I can think of, a situation where I have a long day at work ahead of me and I might have to stay late in the lab. And, maybe you, at the beginning of the day, you already don't feel cherished by me because I'm rushing out the door and I don't take time to just sit with you and chat about the day and dinner and whatnot. And then, during the day, maybe I'm not feeling respected because you're constantly trying to text me or contact me to like talk about the things we should have talked about in the morning. And I feel very disrespected because I'm trying to just work hard and, be able to get home at a decent time. And so I think, a lot of that for us has always stemmed from just communication. And like you said, like they go hand in hand. And so as long as you can always try your best to provide that love for you and respect for me, that makes everything a little bit easier.
One thing is that it's important to me to know that the things that are important to me are important to him. Men think just a little bit differently than women do. So for me, a new fridge, a stove, a washer, a dryer, those things are important to me. To him, it's like, oh, why don't we just wait about 6 years and we can still get those things? Well, that's important to me right now, just like it's important to him to do a homily or, whatever it is he liked to do with his little toys around the house. And so I think that's important.
With toys.
And I like to talk about things right away when they happen, and you need a little bit more time or prefer to talk later. So kind of realizing when the best time is going to be, or just learning these cues from the other. And it's going to be different with each couple, but I think that I probably came into our marriage expecting Carson to communicate in the same way I did, but you just
Right, yeah. Sometimes you forget that you're not marrying yourself. And I think it's critical to improve upon communication, because if you don't, it's not going to be a good ending.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's kind of entertaining in a way, just because I go into every talk or argument or, issue wanting to solve the problem. I'm an engineer and I'm a guy, and so I'm always ready for a challenge. And I quickly learned that that's not how you function, and that sometimes you just need emotional support. And for me to just say, yeah, that sucks, or, like, I understand, like, I'm sorry to hear that, which is very difficult for me, I would say, not my natural instinct.
I think learning these communication cues, though not necessarily in an argument or something, is important, and it can just being a little bit more lighthearted about it. Learning each other's cues in the small things and practicing that communication, even just in daily conversations, is important before you get to a point where they're really important.
Yeah, I think for us especially, we maybe put like a little bit too much pressure on ourselves right when we got married, that, this has got to be perfect, everything's going to be great. And so when we did get in arguments or disagreements, it was this big ordeal. But like you said, I think going into a marriage just with the disposition of, okay, like this is going to take time, this is going to take practice, this is going to take forgiveness and love, really helps your outlook and, like you said, your ability to be able to practice those communication skills, not in a heated argument or something too serious.
Yeah, and one thing that was important for us was having solution-focused conversations, and I think right when we got married, we were both focused on winning a conversation or an argument, and you quickly learn that that's not going to work, and that you need to start all those conversations off with a solution in mind, and that has a lot to do with working towards, building a long-lasting marriage and building trust in one another.
Yeah.
Married couples sometimes fall into destructive patterns of communication, which usually begin before they tie the knot. So we thought it would be helpful to describe these 4 destructive patterns and to illustrate them, so that if you see any signs in your own relationship, you can recognize them and make some adjustments in how you relate to each other.
The first pattern is called escalation. And as the name suggests, it occurs when partners respond negatively to each other with increasing anger. First, we are going to see Max and Donna illustrate a typical case of escalation. Besides the words they speak to each other, notice the nonverbals as well, especially facial expressions and tone of voice.
Did you get the rent paid on time?
No, that's your job.
You were supposed to do it.
No, you were.
Did it get done?
No, and I'm not going to either.
Great. Just great.
Max starts this conversation out badly by asking Donna a very pointed question in a tone of voice that came across as an accusation. Donna understandably feels defensive after this remark and shoots back with an accusation of her own, and the conversation spirals downward from there.
Now we're going to see how another couple, Hector and Maria, can choose to de-escalate a conversation which started to escalate after the wife used a you statement in an accusatory tone of voice.
You left the butter out again.
Why are little things so important to you? Just put it back.
Little things like this are important to me. Is that so bad?
I guess not. Sorry for being such a pain.
Maria realized that she started the conversation out on the wrong foot and made a choice to de-escalate by softening her tone of voice and simply acknowledging that little things like putting food back in the fridge are important to her. Now that Hector no longer feels like he is being attacked, he responds in kind and the conversation ends on a positive note. Even though he thinks leaving the butter out is no big deal, he realizes that if it is important to his wife, it should be important to him.
The second destructive pattern is called invalidation, and it occurs when one partner puts down the thoughts, feelings, or sometimes even the character of the other person. Sometimes invalidation can be subtle, as the following conversation between Hector and Maria illustrates.
You know, I'm really frustrated by that terrible evaluation Bob gave me at work today.
I don't think he was all that critical. Besides, I'd be happy to have an evaluation that positive.
You don't get it. It upset me.
Yeah, I see that, but I still think you're overreacting.
What happened here is that Hector did something that many men do when they see their wife in distress. He tries to solve the problem by suggesting that she shouldn't feel so bad. But while Hector thinks he is helping, he is actually making the situation worse. Because now Maria feels like her feelings of frustration have been dismissed or put down by her husband as if she is overreacting. Now we are going to see Hector and Maria do over this conversation. Notice that Maria has the exact same first line. What changes is Hector's response.
You know, I'm really frustrated by the terrible evaluation Bob gave me at work today.
That must tick you off.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, what would happen if I lost this job?
I didn't know you were so worried about losing your job. What's going on?
In this second conversation, Hector does not invalidate the emotion that Maria expresses, but rather reflects back to her that he gets how frustrated she must feel. And now Maria feels safe to share the deeper concern that is driving her feelings of frustration. She is afraid of losing her job. Notice that this fear did not come out in the first conversation. Maria closed up when she felt like her feelings were being invalidated. But in the second conversation, Hector's empathy has made the difference.
The third destructive pattern is called negative interpretations, and this occurs when a spouse's actions are seen in the worst light. Let's see this illustrated in a very striking way in the following conversation between Max and Donna.
You left the car out again.
Oh, I must have forgotten when I came home from Eileen's.
Yeah, I guess you did. You know how much that annoys me?
Look, I forgot. Do you think I did it to irritate you?
Actually, that's exactly what I think. I have told you so many times I want the car in the garage at night.
I didn't do it to tick you off. I just forget.
If you cared what I thought about things, you'd remember.
I remember to put the car back in 9 times out of 10.
More like half the time, and that's only when I leave the garage door up for you.
Look, have it your way. It doesn't matter what reality is. You'll see it your way no matter what I say.
Wow, that was painful to watch, wasn't it? Max does not give Donna the benefit of the doubt as to why she forgot to put the car in the garage, but gives her actions negative interpretations. She either left the car out deliberately to irritate him, or she doesn't care enough about what he wants to remember his request. Either way, Donna is stuck.
Love always assumes a positive intention on the part of our beloved, even when his or her behavior bothers us, and this will counteract the temptation to give their actions a negative interpretation, which can really do great harm to a relationship. The fourth destructive pattern is called avoidance and withdrawal. And this occurs when one spouse is unwilling to discuss an issue, either avoiding it altogether or withdrawing from the conversation at a certain point when it becomes uncomfortable. Which gender do you think is more prone to avoidance and withdrawal? Research shows that men fall into this pattern more often than women. What they have found is that men really hate discord with their wives, and while they may not outwardly show that they are feeling distress, objective biomarkers like heart rate and blood pressure are more elevated in men than in women during marital conflict. So when a man sees discord coming, his natural instinct is to avoid it altogether or to just get away from it as fast as possible.
One effective way to discuss difficult issues without falling into destructive patterns of communication is called the speaker-listener technique. One person starts as the speaker and holds the floor, speaking in small chunks, while the other person listens attentively without interruption or distracting gestures. After each chunk, the listener paraphrases what was just said. Having to put in your own words what your spouse just expressed makes you really have to listen to him or her, instead of either tuning out or jumping ahead in your mind to what you are going to say in response. After the speaker is satisfied that he or she has been understood, the spouses switch roles. The listener becomes the speaker and holds the floor to respond to what was said. The process then repeats itself. While this is not a technique that you are likely to use on a regular basis, it can be a helpful tool for getting through a difficult discussion and coming away with an understanding of what is really on your spouse's mind and heart.
If a disagreement between you arises during the week, or you have an important decision to make together, make sure to set aside a period of time later in the week to thoroughly discuss it. Your daily FaceTime and your weekly date night are not the time to deal with difficult issues or make important decisions. But you want to make sure to carve out some time in your weekly schedule to do so when the need arises. One very helpful caution when it comes to having a serious discussion is to observe what is called the HALT rule, H-A-L-T. It means to try to avoid a serious discussion if either one or both of you are experiencing what the letters in the acronym stand for. H stands for hungry. A stands for angry. L stands for lonely, and T stands for two things, either tired or strapped for time. Trying to have a serious discussion when either one or both of you are experiencing any of these situations increases the chances that your discussion will lead to an argument.
You know, one of the things that I realized about our relationship that I came to understand was a little bit different is that we can communicate about things that bother us. And when we do have difficulties, we will sit down and talk them through. We don't let them go. We may step back, for a minute and say, okay, this is not the right time to say something because I'm wound up, she's wound up, I'm saying things I might regret later, she's saying things she might regret later. So we may step away every now and then and come back together. But we always come back together and we always talk through it. And I think that is something that when we were doing that early in our relationship and we realized that we could communicate and talk through things, that maybe this is something that's special. Maybe we should be together. And so I think that was, when I realized that point, then I realized we had something special in our relationship, and we've continued to grow in that way throughout the years.